When I had my miscarriage, my husband, Sean Donovan, was traveling the world with a college girl he had been sponsoring. As I recovered from the surgery, I watched the news and quietly picked up my phone to ask Sean for a divorce. A tearful girl on the other end of the line cried, "It was all my fault. Please do not blame Mr. Donovan." Sean, ever so patient with her, snapped at me instead, "Stop being unreasonable. Look at how hysterical you are now. Do you think you can even compare to Alison Grant?" I said nothing more. I simply turned away calmly and walked out of his life without another glance. 2 weeks later, Sean returned from his romantic trip with that same college student, Alison. As soon as he stepped through the door, he tossed down his luggage and coat and barked, "Run a bath for me." I did not move, I just looked up and met his eyes. Sean frowned. He seemed confused that I did not rush to his side, like I always used to, helping him undress, unpacking his things. Then, as if remembering something, he pulled a small jewelry box from his pocket and handed it to me. "Look, I got you a bracelet. Wasn't this the one you kept saying you wanted?" He tossed it beside me casually, as if he were tossing me a handout. I opened the box and stared at the bracelet. It was beautiful, but sadly, it was not the one I had always wanted, the one I truly longed for. He had already slipped onto Alison's wrist. I had seen it clearly in the news photo, Sean holding Alison's hand as they walked through a bustling crowd, the bracelet on her wrist sparkling under the sun. She was also wearing a matching ring, one that perfectly mirrored the one Sean wore. Our wedding bands, however, had been left behind. Sean had not even brought his with him. I shut the jewelry box and set it aside without emotion. Then I looked at Sean and said evenly, "Do you remember what we talked about on the phone? When are we going to finalize the divorce?" Sean clearly had not expected me to bring it up again. He scowled, his tone sharp. "You have been sulking for 2 weeks. I do not have the patience to keep entertaining your drama." Is that so? Funny, because when Alison cried on the phone, he was patient for what felt like forever. Seeing I stayed silent, Sean assumed I had softened. He walked over and wrapped an arm around my waist, resting his head on my shoulder. "Come on, Rachel," he murmured. "I know you are upset about the trip with Alison, but I only see her as a little sister. You are reading too much into it." Alison was a college student Sean sponsored. 2 years ago, with his financial support, she had been admitted into one of the top universities in the country. She was just 20 now, glowing with youth. When she was 18, she spent her summer break staying in our home, our marital home, at my invitation. She only moved out when school began. I treated her like family. Like a younger sister, I took her out, bought her things, even tried to make her summer easier by offering her a position as Sean's assistant. I thought I was helping her. Looking back now, I had invited the wolf into my own home, thinking he had smoothed things over. Sean let go of me and sank onto the sofa like a king returning to his throne. He resumed his commanding tone, "If you are done sulking, go make dinner. I spent all day on the road and I am too tired to deal with your nonsense." I turned and looked at him. "Sean, if you do not want a divorce, fine, but it is not too much to ask for the general manager position back at the company, is it?" Sean snapped his head up, his eyes narrowing as if I had just said something dangerous. After a long pause, he finally spoke, "Do not joke around. You have been a housewife for 5 years, you are completely out of touch. Or do you really think you are still that same Conway executive from before?" You see, that is what Sean always did. He gaslit me, always belittled everything I had ever achieved, but I used to be excellent too. I was never just a housewife. I clenched my fists, trying to hold back the bitterness rising in my chest, but still spoke up for myself. "Sean, do not forget. If it had not been for me, this company would have gone under a long time ago." Sean let out a mocking laugh, full of disdain. "Rachel Conway, do not flatter yourself. You are not that important. If you have time to spare, why not try getting pregnant? That way, maybe my mother will finally accept you." Hearing that, I let out a short laugh, not in anger, but in disbelief. Sean stared at me, puzzled by my reaction. I met his eyes and said slowly, "We were supposed to have a child, but unfortunately, you killed it with your own hands. 2 weeks ago, I had just found out I was 2 months pregnant. That day was our wedding anniversary, and I wanted to surprise him." Sean had always said he loved lively celebrations, so I planned a yacht party and invited our friends, hoping to make the evening special. But Sean never showed up. I called him again and again. He never picked up. Worried that something had happened to him, I checked my phone constantly. That was when I came across a social media post from Allison. She had shared a video by the sea. I recognized the background. It was near the marina, though the video only showed Allison's face clearly. She was holding hands with a man. In the background, I heard her voice. "Are you happy being with me?" Then came a man's voice. His voice, of course. At least I do not have to see the one waiting at home. I felt my heart stop. I had known Sean for years. I could recognize his voice in a crowd, even in a whisper, and there it was. Undeniably his, the one waiting at home. He was talking about me. The video showed Sean and Allison walking along the beach, hand in hand. He had been nearby all along. He had chosen not to come. He skipped our anniversary to take a stroll with another woman. I had long suspected that something was going on between them, but seeing it with my own eyes hit me like a blow to the chest. The pain was sharp, deep. I wiped my tears quickly, trying to hide that I had been crying. By the time the party was ending, Sean showed up, bringing Allison with him. She held a bouquet of roses in full bloom. They were bright and beautiful, but my body instinctively recoiled. I stepped back. Allison looked at me with wide eyes, feigning hurt. "Do you not like me, Rachel? I understand. You did not invite me, and here I am, barging in." She kept calling me sister, and it made my stomach turn. When Allison first came to live with us, she was shy. The housekeeper had addressed me as Mrs. Donovan, but I told Allison to just call me sister. I had truly treated her like family. I had been blind. I never imagined that this sister would turn out to be so calculating. Sean stepped forward, placing himself protectively between us. "She picked those roses for you. She has asthma and cannot be around flowers too often, but she still went to several shops to find the perfect ones. What is the problem?" I stepped back further, turned away, and coughed several times. Then I raised my head and said sharply, "The problem, Sean, I am allergic to pollen." He had known this from the very beginning, since the day we met, yet after 10 years, he remembered Allison's asthma, but forgot my allergy. Was that not absurd? Only then did a flicker of realization cross his face. He fell silent, his expression briefly stunned. Allison glanced at him, then quickly threw the bouquet aside and turned to me with teary eyes. "I am sorry, Rachel. It was my fault. If anyone is to blame, please blame me. Please do not be angry with Mr. Donovan." I looked at her, speechless, but Sean seemed genuinely distressed. He tried to comfort her, even turning to scold me. "Enough, Rachel. You are fine, are you not? Stop making a scene. You are frightening Allison." Hearing him say that, it felt like my heart had dropped into a sea of ice. I was so angry. I just wanted to leave, but Allison reached out and grabbed my wrist, pleading with me not to be upset with Sean. She clung to me tightly, refusing to let go. Her hands had just touched the flowers. Now her skin was against mine, and my wrist immediately began to itch. I was overwhelmed, anxious to get away, but she just would not release me, so I raised my arm and shook her off. I did not use much force. It was just a quick motion, a reflex, but Allison fell straight backward. Sean rushed over in a panic and helped her up, his hands trembling slightly as he checked her from head to toe, making sure she was all right. Allison, with a pitiful expression and tearful eyes, sobbed softly. "It was not my sister's fault. I just lost my balance." Sean had not even thought about what had happened until she said that, but the moment the words left her mouth, he turned to glare at me. He stormed up, pointed at me, and shouted, "Rachel, what happened to you? How did you become like this? You have completely let me down." I glanced briefly at Allison, then looked Sean straight in the eyes and said calmly, "I did not push her." But Sean clearly did not believe me. He grabbed my wrist and pulled me over to where Allison was sitting, clearly expecting me to apologize. What he did not realize was that my allergy had flared up. I could barely breathe. I began to struggle, gasping for air, but he dragged me forward anyway. When we reached Allison, Sean suddenly let go of my wrist. My strength had already left me, and I stumbled sideways, crashing into the sharp corner of the coffee table. Pain shot through me like a knife, stabbing deep into my abdomen. I could not catch my breath. Sean seemed startled by my fall. For a brief second, he looked concerned, and he stepped forward, as if to help me. But before he could reach me, Allison clutched his sleeve tightly and cried out, "Mr. Donovan, my stomach, it hurts so much." Sean froze. Then he turned away from me and scooped Allison into his arms. "Rachel, stop pretending. You started all this tonight by lashing out at Allison. I am taking her to the hospital. You should stay home and reflect on your behavior. I could feel blood flowing beneath me, warm and terrifying, but I could not say a word. All I could do was watch helplessly as Sean carried Allison away. Then everything went black. Later, when I told Sean the truth, he sat in silence for a long time. He did not want to face reality, and he certainly did not want to admit that it was because of him, because of his choices, that the baby died. He finally muttered, "Maybe it is for the best. We both need time to cool off. We are not ready to be parents yet." He paused, then, perhaps remembering some sliver of decency, added, "Are you feeling any better? You have not had breakfast yet. Right, let me ask Auntie Liu to make you something." I reached for his wrist and looked up, forcing him to listen. "Sean," I said softly, but firmly, "the baby could have been saved, but I had a severe allergic reaction to pollen. My life was in danger. The doctors had no choice but to save me first." I took a shaky breath. "So Sean, it was you. You chose Allison over the baby. That child died because of you." Sean took a step back, his face pale, unwilling to accept it. "Rachel, you are being too harsh. Are you saying none of this is your fault? If you had not pushed Allison, I would not have reacted the way I did." There it was again. Sean always found a way to shift the blame onto me. He acted as if he had never done anything wrong. I had nothing more to say to him. I pulled my hand away. "I will have the divorce papers drawn up and sent to you." He hesitated for a moment. Then, realizing I was serious, he tried a softer approach. "Rachel, are you still upset about that birthday? I know I was not with you. But how about this? You always said you wanted to go to Bali. Right, let me ask my assistant to book the tickets. We can leave tonight." Bali, that was the honeymoon destination I had dreamed about. But Sean's mother had said it was wasteful. She believed I only married Sean for his money. She claimed I had been frugal before marriage. But once I had the ring, I revealed my true self. Back then, I desperately wanted to win her approval, so we never went. But when Sean took Allison on a tour around the world, Bali was their very first stop. I even saw Sean's mother comment on one of Allison's social media posts, calling her beautiful and sweet, telling Sean to take good care of her. Compared to me, Allison looked more like the daughter-in-law she had always wanted. I had not answered Sean yet when his phone rang. He glanced at me, then turned away. As if caught in the act, he walked into the other room, but I caught a glimpse of the name on the screen. It was Allison. After a short call, Sean returned with a tense expression. "Allison is sick. I need to go check on her. We can go to Bali tomorrow." Without waiting for my response, he grabbed his jacket and left. I watched his back disappear through the door and let out a bitter laugh. Same situation, same choice, and once again, Sean chose Allison. I did not linger in the wedding house. Instead, I went straight to the bedroom, packed up my belongings, and left. Back when the Conway family went bankrupt, I had already sold off all of our assets. All that remained was one ancestral house. I had kept it cleaned regularly by a caretaker, so when I returned, it was spotless. I brought my luggage back to the old house, put everything in order, and contacted a lawyer to have a divorce agreement drafted. It took less than a day for the paperwork to be completed. Our assets had been clearly outlined in the prenuptial agreement, so the division was simple and fair. I asked for nothing more and nothing less, only what was rightfully mine. Once the divorce agreement was ready, I had someone deliver it to Sean, but it was returned to me, untouched. Since then, Sean had been calling me non-stop. I ignored every call, and when it got too frustrating, I blocked his number altogether. In the days after I left the wedding house, I began job hunting. Ironically, the thing I had once been most proud of, my years as a full-time wife, had now become my greatest obstacle. No one wanted to hire someone who had been out of the workforce for 5 years, especially not Sean's former wife. This industry was small. If Sean wanted to make sure I found no work, it only took a word from him. That afternoon, Allison called. It had been 2 weeks since I last saw her. We had not spoken since, when her name flashed across my screen. I was curious, I answered, putting the phone on speaker, but it was not Allison's voice that came through, it was Sean's. He said, "Rachel, are you still not done with this? My mother heard about everything and was really upset. Tomorrow is her birthday. She wants you to come back to the family estate to spend the day with her." In all the years I had been married to Sean, this was only the second time he had mentioned bringing me back to the family estate. The first time had also been for his mother's birthday. I opened my mouth to reply, but then a woman's soft, sugary voice interrupted from the background. Sean, I forgot to bring clothes. Can I borrow one of your shirts for now? It was Allison. That tone of hers, I would never forget it. Sickly sweet and deliberately coy. And now I learned something else. She called him Sean Ge, the same name I used to call him back when we were in school. I had picked it up from reading romance novels and had said it jokingly at first, but then it stuck. Even after we got married, I still called him that. Until one day he told me it sounded childish and asked me not to call him that again. Yet now, Allison was calling him Sean Ge, and he did not seem to mind. I did not hesitate. I said calmly, "You and Allison are together." Sean immediately tried to explain. Allison had a fight with her roommate, so I picked her up from school. She left in a rush and did not bring any clothes. She just borrowed a shirt. That is all. I gave a short, cold laugh. That is all. He paused, then added, "There really is nothing going on between me and Allison." But before he could finish, Allison's voice rang out again, this time much closer to the phone. "Sean, my hand still hurts from earlier. Could you help me dry my hair?" Sean must have covered the microphone then, because his voice came through faintly. "Allison, just dry it yourself for now. I need to talk to your sister." I rolled my eyes. I am an only child. I do not have a sister. Allison, hearing me clearly, seemed to seize on that as an opportunity to play the victim. "Sister, I know you are still angry with me. I deserve it. I ruined things between you and Mr. Donovan. Please do not blame him. It was all my fault." There it was again, her tactic of shifting all blame onto herself, hoping I would play the bitter, jealous wife and get myself cast out by Sean. Sean chimed in, trying to defend her again. "Rachel, this was not Allison's fault. No one wanted it to happen this way." I said nothing, but Allison, as always, began crying with perfect timing. "If sister does not want to see me, then I will not go to the Donovan estate. Mr. Donovan, please apologize to your mother for me. I promised her I would celebrate her birthday with her, but I guess I cannot keep that promise now." So even Sean's mother had invited Allison. Not that it surprised me. She had always liked Allison. She often invited her over to the family estate, asking her to keep her company. Meanwhile, I, the legally wedded daughter-in-law, had only ever been there once. Sean acted as if I did not exist, gently coaxing Allison with a warm voice. "Allison, Mom has been waiting to chat with you. She also wants you to help her make the birthday cake. How can you not go?" I let out a cold laugh. Only then did Sean seem to remember that I was still there. He quickly turned toward me and said, "Rachel, Allison is around the same age as my sister. My mom treats her like a goddaughter. That is all." Allison chimed in right away, adding sweetly, "That is right, sister. If you really mind, I will skip tomorrow." I smiled faintly. Allison had clearly gone to great lengths to force me out of the picture. How could I possibly give her what she wanted? I returned her smile and said, "Since Mrs. Donovan likes you so much, of course you should go." Allison seemed uncertain now, clearly thrown off. She asked, awkwardly, "Then, what about you?" I tilted my head and replied calmly, "Me, I am going too, of course, would not want to miss the show." The day to visit the Donovan estate arrived. I did not even bring a gift. I planned to go alone. Sean was supposed to pick me up, and I did not refuse. I figured it would be a good opportunity to talk about divorce. But just before leaving, he called. He told me that Allison had gone on a field study trip in the countryside and could not get back on her own. He needed to pick her up. The problem was, the countryside and the Donovan estate were in completely opposite directions. There was no way he could manage both trips in time. Sean explained that since Allison was still a student, he was worried about her traveling alone. As for me, I was mature enough to get to the estate on my own. I said nothing, just gave a simple all right. After all, this was not the first time Sean had chosen Allison over me. I still remembered 6 months ago, when Sean and I went to my hometown to visit my parents' graves. I had originally buried them in the city, but they always said they wanted to return to their roots, so I moved them to our ancestral land. The road back home was rough, and there was no formal cemetery. Families had marked out spots in the mountains themselves. These days, many graves had been relocated. And hardly anyone came up the hills anymore. It had rained just the day before, so the trail was slick and steep. The silence and the remoteness of it all felt unsettling. I held tightly to Sean's arm to ease my fear. As we stood before the graves, Sean told me he was going to have a cigarette. I did not stop him. After cleaning the graves and preparing everything, I looked for Sean so we could burn some paper offerings and pour wine for my father, but he was nowhere to be found. Panicked, I called him. The phone line was busy. It was getting colder on the mountain, surrounded by graves, with no other soul in sight. I began to shiver uncontrollably. I called again and again until finally, he picked up. His voice was impatient. "Why are you calling so much?" I stammered. "Where are you?" Sean sounded flustered. "But not because of me," he said. "Allison's roommate's father showed up again and is causing trouble. I need to go check on her." I stood frozen, then rage boiled inside me. "Sean, you are my husband. You left me here, in the middle of nowhere, without saying a word, just to rush back for Allison. If her father is harassing her, she can call the police. You are not a cop. What use are you?" Sean was silent for a few seconds, then he snapped, "Rachel, why are you so heartless? Allison is all alone in the city. She is already struggling. Can you not show some compassion?" Compassion? I almost laughed. It would take him over 6 hours to drive back. By the time he got there, whatever danger Allison was in would have passed. How was that saving anyone? Calling the police was helping her. While we argued, it suddenly started to rain. The trees offered little cover, and I could tell the rain would not stop soon. I felt even colder, shivering. I pleaded, "Sean, it is raining now. You know I am scared. I cannot get down the mountain on my own." His voice came back with frustration. "Isn't your aunt nearby? Ask her to come get you. I do not have time for this." Then the line went dead. Later, the doctor told me that when I arrived at the hospital, I was already showing signs of hypothermia. Had I gotten there any later, it might have been too late, but I did not have the luxury to break down. I needed to save myself, so I called my aunt, who lived not too far from the base of the mountain. Just as the call began to ring, my phone suddenly went black. That was when I realized it had run out of battery. A sudden clap of thunder cracked across the sky, and I collapsed to the ground in fright. It took me a long time to gather the courage to stand up. Eventually, I found a stick by the side of the road to help me steady myself. I do not even remember how I got down the mountain. I only remember the biting cold and the heavy rain pounding against my body. Then came the thick fog, making it nearly impossible to see the road ahead. I stumbled more times than I could count. With each step, I grew more exhausted. My eyelids felt like they weighed 1,000 pounds. Near the bottom of the slope, I took a terrible fall. My back slammed hard against a rock. The pain was so intense, I could not even stand up. In that moment, all I could think of were the countless news stories I had read. People getting lost in the mountains and never coming out alive. I thought that was going to be my ending too. I was too weak to move any farther. All I could do was close my eyes, but just before everything faded, I saw someone running toward me. When I woke up, my aunt was beside me, crying. She told me that I had already made it to the base of the mountain when a passing villager saw me. That was the only reason I had survived. The doctor said that by the time I arrived at the hospital, my body was already showing signs of hypothermia. A little later, and I would not have made it. I picked up my phone and saw dozens of missed calls and messages. None of them from Sean. Then I saw the photo my friend had sent. It was Sean, sitting in a restaurant with Allison. The timestamp on the picture was from 3 nights ago, the very night I nearly died in the mountains. As I stared at the photo, a wave of despair washed over me. I should have realized it sooner. In Sean's heart, Allison had long since become more important than I was. When I arrived at the Donovan estate, I could already hear laughter and cheerful voices from inside. "Allison's cake looks even better than the ones from the bakery. Allison, if only you were my daughter-in-law." Yes. Yes, I want Allison to be my sister-in-law too. Listening to the endless praise from the Donovan family, I let out a quiet, bitter laugh. No matter what it was, if it came from outside the house, it was better than anything at home. That was how the Donovans thought. Back when my family, the Conways, had not gone bankrupt, Mrs. Donovan used to fawn over me like a treasured guest. I should have recorded it. Now that the Conways had fallen and the Donovans were thriving, she spent every day picking me apart. I used to come and go from this house as I pleased. Now, I had only been here twice in 5 years. I steadied myself, pushed the gate open, and stepped into the courtyard. The 4 people who had been laughing fell silent the moment they saw me. The sudden quiet was almost eerie, as if nothing had happened. I walked past them calmly. Sean's sister, Lila Donovan, was the first to speak, her voice sharp. Well, look who finally decided to show up. Making the birthday girl wait on her 60th birthday, you really think highly of yourself, don't you? I glanced at Allison and said evenly, I am not late, am I? The cake's not even done yet. Allison immediately put on a pitiful face, lowering her voice. I am so sorry, it was my fault, I was too slow and delayed Mrs. Donovan's celebration. Mrs. Donovan patted Allison's shoulder kindly and replied, there is still time, no rush, dear, take your time. I shrugged and shot a sideways glance at Lila, and Sean, as always, disappeared quietly into the background, swallowed by the noise of the women around him. After soothing Allison, Mrs. Donovan finally turned to me. Come with me, I need a word. I followed her into the study. She walked straight to the tea table and began pouring herself a cup, but she did not invite me to sit, nor did she offer me any tea, but I was not the same timid daughter-in-law I had once been. I sat down directly across from her, picked up the teapot, and calmly poured myself a cup. Her eyes widened in surprise, clearly not expecting that from me. I took a sip, met her gaze, and said, go ahead. What do you want to talk about? She looked me up and down, then straightened her shoulders and returned to her usual haughty tone. I heard you had a miscarriage, and now you want to divorce Sean. I nodded. Wasn't that what you always wanted? At that, her expression twisted, and she began to scold me without even asking for an explanation. That does not give you the right to throw away your own child. Do you know what you have done? That was a life, a living, breathing child. What you did is murder. Sean had twisted the truth again. He often went crying to his mother, painting me as the villain, and she, already biased against me, needed no encouragement to hate me more. I looked straight into Mrs. Donovan's eyes and spoke slowly, firmly. It was your son who killed your grandchild. It had nothing to do with me. Naturally, Mrs. Donovan did not believe a word I said, but I had never expected her to. I had no intention of wasting any more of my breath on her. Without another word, I turned and walked out of the study. In the courtyard, Sean was grilling with Allison. He took the skewer from her hands and said gently, Allison, you should rest, let me handle the cooking, go play with Xiaoxue for a while. I watched Allison pushing Donovan Xiaoxue on the swing, all smiles and sunshine, as if life were perfect. Suddenly, my mind drifted back to the first time I visited the Donovan estate after our wedding, that unforgettable day. Back then, the Conway family was still riding high, even more prominent than the Donovans. When Sean and I were dating, Mrs. Donovan had been all smiles, even encouraging Sean to spend more time with me, but after the Conways went bankrupt, everything changed, the warmth evaporated. Mrs. Donovan began to mock and belittle me with thinly veiled insults. Sean, determined to marry me, took our household registry and left home without her blessing. Though the marriage became a fact, Mrs. Donovan still refused to acknowledge me as her daughter-in-law. It was not until Chinese New Year that year, when Sean's grandmother came from the countryside and expressed her liking for me, that Mrs. Donovan reluctantly agreed to let Sean bring me home for the holidays. It was my first visit to the Donovan residence as his wife. Naturally, I wanted to make a good impression. I prepared thoughtful gifts for every family member, all handmade, so as not to use any of Sean's money. But as soon as I arrived, Mrs. Donovan poured cold water all over my good intentions. Just look at you, she said, sneering. All you can manage are these shabby, cheap little things. I tried to explain that I had put a lot of effort into the gifts, but she dismissed me with a wave and threw them into the trash bin right in front of me. Sean said a few words, just a few, before pulling me aside and whispering, just ignore her, she is always like this, just endure it. So I did. That evening, during New Year's dinner, Sean asked me to keep Xiaoxue company. I wanted to get closer to her, to bond a little, but she looked at me with open hostility. She called me shameless, disgusting, accused me of stealing her brother away. She was still young, but I suspected Mrs. Donovan had been feeding her those ideas. I told Sean what had happened. I asked him to talk to her, to guide her before her thinking became warped, but it only made Xiaoxue hate me more. The day we were leaving the house, she pushed me hard. I fell to the ground, scraping my arm on a sharp branch. The cut was deep, and even now, I still bear the scar. And yet, Mrs. Donovan insisted it was my fault, that her daughter had nothing to do with it. Even Sean told me to just let it go, and I did. I let it go, until now. The banquet began. Mrs. Donovan had arranged for Allison to sit right beside Sean, while I was placed at the far end of the table. I said nothing. I simply sat down and watched as they ate and laughed like one big happy family. Throughout the dinner, Mrs. Donovan repeatedly tried to pair Sean and Allison together. She even grabbed Allison's hand right in front of me and asked cheerfully, "Allison, would you be happy if I made you my daughter-in-law?" Allison blushed slightly and lowered her gaze. "Rachel is Mr. Donovan's wife. I would never think of such a thing." I rolled my eyes. No other thoughts. Please, she practically had future Mrs. Donovan written across her forehead. Mrs. Donovan shot me a disdainful look, then turned her full attention to Allison, chatting animatedly. "Anyway, Sean will be divorcing Rachel soon. When that is done, you can move in here with us. Oh, and we must throw you the wedding of the century. Let everyone see what a good daughter-in-law the Donovans have found." I remembered then how there had been no wedding for me. Of course, Mrs. Donovan had refused to acknowledge me back then. Why would there have been a wedding? Sean had been kicked out of the house with nothing. We used what little he had to rent a wedding dress. Our ceremony had taken place in a tiny apartment, just the two of us, making promises we thought would last forever. Back then, we got through so many hard days. And now, when things should have been easier, somehow everything had fallen apart. I lowered my eyes and said nothing. Sean must have sensed something, because he turned to look at me and gave a small shake of his head. I understood what he meant. Endure it. But I had no intention of staying silent this time. I rolled my eyes, stood up from my seat, and began walking straight toward them. Sean instinctively stood up as well, when he saw I was headed in their direction. He immediately stepped in to block me. Allison also moved to intercept. I had no interest in playing this game. I brushed right past both of them and walked straight up to Mrs. Donovan. She looked surprised. "What do you think you're doing?" I smiled sweetly at her, then grabbed her arm, pulled her aside, and sat down right in her seat at the head of the table. Her eyes widened in rage. "Rachel, have you lost your mind?" Resting my chin in my hand, I looked at her calmly and said, "Mrs. Donovan, you carry yourself with such authority now. It is almost easy to forget how, 15 years ago, when your family first arrived in this city penniless, you begged my father to help you, just for a place at the table. My parents had just passed away, and you joined hands with others to take over their company. Everything you eat, everything you wear, even this house, was built on the blood and bones of the Conway family." I said it all so lightly, as if I were just making polite dinner conversation. Mrs. Donovan stared at me, and for the first time, there was fear in her eyes. Her voice trembled. How do you?" I smiled. "How do I know? That's what you want to ask, isn't it?" Sean, realizing I was about to say something dangerous, quickly stepped in to stop me. "Rachel, this is not the place. Let's talk about it at home." I shook his hand off. At first, I really didn't know, but I guess we can thank your beloved Allison for that. Can't we? They had kept this secret from me for years. After all, building their success on the downfall of the Conways was not exactly something to be proud of. But Allison, in her desperation to break up my marriage with Sean, had let it slip. What she did not expect was that I would take it this far. Now that the fire was burning toward her, Allison quickly tried to backpedal. "Sister, please do not say things you cannot take back. I only came to this city 2 years ago. How would I even know about this?" I ignored her and looked at Sean instead. His face was already flushed with anger. Seeing me turn to him, he grabbed my wrist and said through clenched teeth, "Rachel, stop making a scene. It is my mother's birthday. Show some respect." I yanked my arm free. "Respect? Have any of you here ever shown me any? If not, then tell me. Why should I show it to you?" Allison stepped forward, putting on her best righteous voice as if she were the voice of reason. "Sister, this is too much. You cannot treat Mrs. Donovan and Mr. Donovan this way." I glanced at my watch. "Relax, you'll get your turn very soon." The moment those words left my mouth, the entire living room went dark. The only thing left illuminated was the massive projection screen behind me. A video began to play. Though the footage was grainy, it was still clear enough to make out what was happening. It was a recording from a school bathroom. Several girls were cornering one girl. Smoking and laughing cruelly, they pressed cigarette butts to her skin, threw vicious insults at her, and eventually stripped her and recorded explicit footage on their phones. "Grant, what do we do now?" one of the girls asked. The camera panned to the ringleader. It was Allison, that sweet, innocent face that everyone thought was always being bullied. Turns out she was the bully all along. The room erupted in gasps. No one had ever imagined that the well-behaved, soft-spoken Allison, the one who always played the victim, was in fact the one terrorizing others. Allison lunged at the projector, frantically trying to shut it off, but I had hired a hacker. No matter what she did, it was useless. Then came the second video. This one was even worse. It showed Allison in bed with another man. They were kissing passionately. The man asked, "You're not falling for Sean, are you?" Allison scoffed, "You must be joking. He is old and boring. He's nothing compared to you. Do not worry," she added, "once I get enough money, we'll run away together." The video cut off abruptly after they engaged in what could only be described as intimate acts. Sean stood frozen, completely stunned. He could not say a single word. Mrs. Donovan, once so poised and domineering, collapsed back into her chair, too shocked to stand. Donovan Schwer burst into tears and pointed at Allison, crying out, "You're awful, you're a horrible woman." The truth, so long hidden, had finally come to light. I looked around the chaotic living room, where shouting filled the air and glass crunched underfoot, and I could hardly contain the joy in my chest. It felt like madness, but a satisfying kind. I had been collecting all this evidence for over half a year. Waiting patiently for this very moment, Allison clung desperately to Sean's arm, her voice shrill with panic. She pleaded, "Sean, please believe me. I am begging you. I could never hurt you. This is all Rachel's doing. Those videos were made with AI, you have to believe me, but the videos were too real, too detailed. Anyone with half a brain could tell they were not fake." Sean raised his hand and slapped her across the face. "You filthy liar." Allison stared at him in disbelief. One hand pressed to her cheek. "You hit me. You actually dared to hit me." At that moment, Mrs. Donovan finally snapped out of her daze and rushed to her son's defense. "You should be glad that is all he did. I am calling the police. Women like you belong in jail." But Allison was not the type to go down quietly. Her polite facade shattered as she smashed a beer bottle on the table. Shards of glass flew, and she pointed the jagged edge at everyone in the room. "Do not push me, I swear. I will not go down alone." The living room had turned into a battleground, but I remained seated calmly at the head of the table, watching the chaos unfold before me like a well-rehearsed play. Mrs. Donovan used to say she liked daughters-in-law like Allison, so I had stepped aside and let Allison take my place. Now, everyone should be happy. Word of what happened at the Donovan estate spread like wildfire. Even the company's stock prices took a sharp dive. Suddenly, job offers from firms all across the city flooded my inbox, but I did not choose any of them. Instead, I sent my resume to a small company I had never applied to before. I was quickly hired. My background was strong. Good degrees, solid experience, even with a few years away from the workforce. I was more than qualified for a smaller firm. The company was brand new. The founder, Marcus, had recently returned from studying abroad. He was young but well-educated, with broad exposure to the world. Smart, capable, and a natural leader. Together with a hard-working team, the company began to thrive. Working with Marcus felt like we had known each other forever. Our ideas often matched with uncanny precision. These 3 months of work brought me more happiness than 5 years as a housewife ever had. Except for one thing, ever since that day, Sean had been showing up again and again. He came to me every day, kneeling and begging for forgiveness, pleading with me not to finalize the divorce, asking me to return as Mrs. Donovan. He was delusional. One night, Sean came to my building again, reeking of alcohol, carrying a bouquet of preserved flowers. He insisted I take them. "Rachel," he slurred, "I remember you are allergic to pollen, so I made this bouquet myself. Look, is it not beautiful?" I stared at him, and suddenly, my mind drifted back to our college days. Back then, he had remembered my allergy too. He gave me a similar bouquet of preserved flowers. I had cherished it, kept it in our wedding house all these years, unable to throw it away. But this time, I took the bouquet from him and dropped it straight into the trash can. Sean's eyes filled with tears. He broke down instantly. "Rachel, I know I messed up. I am trying to fix it. I swear I am changing. I have already reported Allison to the police. She is in custody now. She will not bother us again. Please, I am begging you, forgive me." I looked at Sean seriously and said, "Even if you got rid of Allison, there will always be another Allison, a Susan, a Lisa, Someone else will always come along. Our relationship is broken. Sean, you need to accept that." Sean shook his head, his eyes searching mine desperately. He pointed at the bracelet on my wrist. "You are still wearing the bracelet I gave you in college. Do you remember how happy we were back then? We promised we would be together forever. Rachel, how can you forget that?" I reached up, took off the bracelet, and placed it in his hand. "You are the one who forgot the promise." "I never did." Sean wanted to talk about college. Yes, those years had been beautiful. We had made promises to last a lifetime. But in the end, it was Sean who broke them. It was Sean who changed. Sean dropped to his knees, clutching the hem of my coat like a drowning man grabbing for air. "Rachel," he pleaded, "I beg you. I swear I will change. I will never make the same mistake again. Please, I cannot lose you. I cannot live without you." I tried to pull away, but I did not have the strength. In the end, I could only let my hands fall helplessly at my sides and look down at him with a weary heart. "Sean," I said quietly, "you do not love me that much. And you were never that selfless. Stop trying to make yourself look like some kind of tragic hero." He whimpered like a child denied his favorite toy. "No, Rachel, please, I am begging you." I reached for my phone, thinking I might have to call security, when a sudden fist came crashing down on Sean's face. He stumbled to the side, completely caught off guard. When I looked up, I saw Marcus standing there. His voice was low and forceful as he said, "Get out, do not ever let me catch you bothering Rachel again." Sean fled, clearly terrified. After that day, Sean did not come looking for me again. But just a few days later, I got a call from Mrs. Donovan. She said Sean had locked himself in his room for 3 days straight. He had not eaten a single bite or taken a sip of water. She sounded desperate. She begged me to go see him, even if it was only to get him to take a few bites of food. I went, not because I felt sorry for him, but because I did not want him dying and having that death tied to me. That would only make him linger in my memory, and frankly, that thought disgusted me. I carried a tray of food and knocked on the door. From inside came the sound of things crashing to the floor. "Go away, all of you, leave me alone." I cleared my throat and said, "It is me." The noise stopped. A few moments later, the door creaked open. I stepped inside and saw Sean. He looked like a man who had aged overnight. His hair, once dark and tidy, had turned completely gray. His face, once youthful and clean, was now lined and weary. He looked, quite honestly, like he was in his 50s. The room was a mess, completely unlike the meticulous, neat Sean I had once known. Clothes were scattered everywhere, and the curtains were still drawn tight. I handed him the bowl. "Eat something. You starving to death would not break my heart." He stared at it in silence for a moment, then finally took the bowl and began to eat. Between mouthfuls, he mumbled, "You used to bring me lunch back in college too." I looked at him steadily. "Sean, that was a long time ago. We have graduated. There is no going back. You do not need to keep bringing it up." Sean immediately looked up, hopeful. "No, Rachel, we can go back. We can, I swear, if we do not get divorced, we can still be just like we were in college." I held his gaze, calm and steady. "Sean, you still do not get it. I am not divorcing you because of Allison. I am divorcing you because I do not love you anymore." His eyes filled with tears instantly. His lips trembled as he stammered, You do not love me." I looked directly at him, firm and clear. "That is right, Sean, I do not love you anymore." He sat there frozen, staring at me like he had never seen me before. "There is no going back," I added. "All you are doing is punishing yourself. As for me, I really do not care anymore." I did not say another word. I turned and walked out of the room without looking back. Behind me, I could hear the sound of Sean scooping rice into his mouth, over and over again, as if trying to swallow the truth along with it. I did not stop. I walked right out of the Donovan estate. As I stepped through the gate, I saw Marcus waiting outside. He caught sight of me and smiled. I smiled too, and walked toward him. The sun was setting behind us, casting golden light across the path. We walked side by side into the fading light. Neither of us knew what the future would bring, but for now, we had each other, and that was enough. Thank you for watching today's story. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below, so feel free to share your opinions. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more great stories. We'll see you in the next video.